thank all of you for coming. This is a really great crowd to help celebrate a really important event, not only in New Hampshire's history, but in the history of our country. 250 years ago today, we had our provincial Congress gather and pass New Hampshire's first Constitution, which was also a declaration of our independence from Great Britain. And you're going to hear a little bit more about the circumstances about that in a little bit. But for 250 years now, we have a government that is run by the citizens of this state and the country that has endured 2.5 centuries. That's really remarkable. And as is characteristic of the state of New Hampshire, where we have many firsts related to the history of our country, this was a first. New Hampshire was the first colony to actually take this action and form its own government separate from Great Britain. So with that, we're going to jump right into the program. Before I do, I want to recognize we have a great display up here. We have a recently restored original manuscript of the 1776 Constitution. And so that's a priceless document, but it's here for you to see. Also in the case is the waistcoat of Josiah Bartlett, a really interesting tidbit of history. Obviously, he was a key player in making the events of today, 250 years ago, happen. So with that, I believe we're going to have a presentation of the colors.
Comrade, march. Mark time, march. Color guard, pull. To the left, face. Order, present, arms. Right turn, march. Prepare to post. Post. Right turn, march. Form ranks. Carry arms. To the right, face. Close ranks. Mark time, march. Forward, march.
Okay, that was a very fitting presentation by the New Hampshire Sons of the American Revolution. Before you sit down, this isn't in the calendar, but I think it's very appropriate that you give the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, I'd like to ask the Deputy Secretary of State, Brendan O'Donnell, to come up and read a proclamation.
Good afternoon. I have the pleasure of reading a proclamation from Governor Aya, she issued today. A proclamation, 250th anniversary of New Hampshire's first state constitution, January 5th, 2026. Whereas on January 5th, 1776, New Hampshire became the first of 13 colonies to establish an independent government through the adoption of its own state constitution, 6 months before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Whereas the adoption of New Hampshire's first Constitution marked a decisive moment in American history, reflecting the collapse of royal authority and the determination of people acting through the provincial Congress to govern themselves. Whereas this bold action demonstrated New Hampshire's leadership during the Revolutionary era and its early commitment to representative government, the rule of law, and the principles of liberty and self-determination. Whereas the 250th anniversary of the New Hampshire Constitution is being commemorated through public programs and educational events, including a reading of the 1776 Constitution and reflections on its historical significance as part of a broader national observance marking 250 years of American democracy. Whereas the people of New Hampshire take pride in their state's foundational role in the birth of our nation and continue to uphold the enduring values of freedom, independence, and civic responsibility embodied in the spirit of live free or die. Now therefore, I, Kelly Ayotte, Governor of the State of New Hampshire, do hereby proclaim January 5th, 2026 as the 250th anniversary of New Hampshire's first state constitution in the state of New Hampshire, and encourage all citizens to reflect upon this historic milestone and to honor New Hampshire's leadership in shaping the principles of self-government that continue to guide the state and the nation. With that, I'd like to introduce Ashley Miller, State Archivist.
Welcome everyone, thank you for being here today. 250 years ago, on January 5th, 1776, the people of New Hampshire took a step that forever changed the course of American history. In the midst of uncertainty, conflict, and revolution, they did something extraordinary. They created their own constitution. In doing so, New Hampshire became the first colony to establish a government independent of British rule. This bold and deliberate act was not only a response to crisis, it was a declaration of principle, a commitment to self-government, and a powerful statement of faith in the people. By the latter part of 1775, New Hampshire's colonial government had effectively collapsed. Royal Governor John Wentworth, a loyal servant of the Crown, had worked to maintain British authority in the colony, even as public resistance grew stronger. His enforcement of unpopular royal policies, including those that led to the Pine Tree Riot, combined with his increasing reliance on British military power to suppress dissent, alienated many New Hampshire residents. Events such as the raids on Fort William and Mary made it unmistakably clear that the governor no longer held the confidence or the consent of the governed. As tensions escalated, Wentworth dissolved the Colonial Assembly and in June of 1775 fled New Hampshire to seek protection from the British military. His departure left the colony without any recognized civil authority. Courts could not function, laws could not be enforced, everyday governance ground to a halt. At a time when stability was desperately needed, New Hampshire found itself without a government at all. Yet rather than descend into chaos, the people of New Hampshire acted with remarkable resolve. Through the Provincial Congress, an assembly chosen by towns across the colony, leaders gathered to confront an urgent question. How could order, justice, and liberty be preserved without a king or royal governor? Their answer was revolutionary in both spirit and structure. On January 5th, 1776, the Provincial Congress adopted a constitution that placed governing power firmly in the hands of the people. It created an elected legislature and an executive council chosen not by royal appointment, but by popular consent. Authority flowed upward from the towns and their representatives, not downward from the crown. This was governance by choice, not by decree. Although this constitution was intended as a temporary measure, a practical solution for extraordinary times, it embodied enduring principles. It affirmed the right of the people to govern themselves. It recognized representation as the foundation of legitimate authority. And it demonstrated that stable government could exist without monarchy or hereditary power. This first constitution remained in effect throughout the Revolutionary War, and until New Hampshire adopted a permanent constitution in 1784. During those crucial years, it provided continuity, legitimacy, and a model of self-rule at a moment when the future of American independence was far from certain. New Hampshire's action did not occur in isolation. News of this constitution spread beyond its borders, offering both inspiration and proof to other colonies that independence was not merely an abstract ideal, but a workable reality. 6 months later, the Continental Congress would adopt the Declaration of Independence. But New Hampshire had already shown what independence could look like in practice. As we commemorate this 250th anniversary, we honor more than a document. We honor the courage of ordinary people, farmers, merchants, artisans, and town leaders who understood that liberty requires responsibility, participation, and the rule of law. They did not wait for permission to govern themselves. They stepped forward, trusted one another, and built a government grounded in consent. The legacy of New Hampshire's first constitution lives on today in our democratic institutions and the belief that government exists to serve the people. 2.5 centuries later, we continue to benefit from their foresight, their pragmaticism, and their unwavering commitment to self-rule. On January 5th, 1776, New Hampshire did more than respond to a political crisis. It helped light the path toward American independence, and for that, its place in history is secure. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Matthew Thornton.
Good day, all. An honor to be here. A journal of the House of Representatives of the colony of New Hampshire, who convened at Exeter as delegates from the several towns, parishes, and places in said colony on the 21st day of December, Anno Domini 1775, and continued a Congress until the 5th day of January, Anno Domini 1776. And then, by leave of the the Continental Congress, resolved themselves into a House of Representatives or Assembly for the colony of New Hampshire in Congress Friday, November 3rd, 1775. The Congress, taking into consideration the report of the Committee on the New Hampshire Instructions, resolved that it be recommended to the Provincial Convention of New Hampshire to call a full and free representation of the people, and that the representatives, if they think it necessary, establish such a form of government as in their judgment will best produce the happiness of the people and most effectually secure peace and good order in the province during the continuance of the present dispute between Great Britain and the colonies. Extract from the minutes, Charles Thompson, Secretary, by order of Congress, John Hancock, President, a true copy. Attention, Noah Emery, Deputy Secretary. In Congress at Exeter, January 5th, 1776, voted that this Congress take up civil government for this colony in manner and form following these: we, the members of the Congress of New Hampshire, chosen and appointed by the free suffrages of the people of said colony, and authorized and empowered by them to meet together and use such means and pursue such measures as we should judge best for the public good, and in particular to establish some form of government, provided that measure should be recommended by the Continental Congress, and a recommendation to that purpose having been transmitted to us from the said Congress, have taken into our serious consideration the unhappy circumstances into which this colony is involved by means of many grievous and oppressive acts of the British Parliament, depriving us of our national and constitutional rights and privileges, to enforce obedience to which acts a powerful fleet and army have been sent into this country by the Ministry of Great Britain, who have exercised a wanton and cruel abuse of their power in destroying the lives and properties of the colonists in many places with fire and sword, taking the ships lading from many of the honest and industrious inhabitants of this colony employed in commerce, agreeable to the laws and customs a long time used here. The sudden and abrupt departure of His Excellency John Wentworth Esquire, our late governor, and several of the council, leaving us destitute of legislation, and no executive courts being open to punish criminal offenders, whereby the lives and properties of the honest people of this colony are liable to the machinations and evil designs of wicked men. Therefore, for the preservation of peace and good order, and for the security of the lives and properties of the inhabitants of this colony, we conceive ourselves reduced to the necessity of establishing a form of government to continue during the present unhappy and unnatural contest with Great Britain, protesting and declaring that we never sought to throw off our dependence upon Great Britain, but felt ourselves happy under her protection while we could enjoy our constitutional rights and privileges, and that we shall rejoice if such a reconciliation between us and our parent state can be effected, as shall be approved by the Continental Congress, in whose prudence and wisdom we confide. Accordingly, pursuant to the trust reposed in us, we do resolve that this Congress assume the name, power, and authority of a House of Representatives or Assembly for the colony of New Hampshire, and that said House then proceed to choose 12 persons, being reputable freeholders and inhabitants within this colony in the following manner: these 5 in the county of Rockingham, 2 in the county of Strafford, 2 in the county of Hillsborough, 2 in the county of Cheshire, and 1 in the county of Grafton, to be a distinct and separate branch of the legislature by the name of a council for this colony, to continue as such until the 3rd Wednesday in December next, any 7 of whom to be a quorum to do business. That such council appoint their president, and in his absence that the senior councilor preside. That a secretary be appointed by both branches, who may be a councilor or otherwise as they shall choose. That no act or resolve shall be valid and put into execution unless agreed to and passed by both branches of the legislature. That all public officers for the said colony and each county for the current year be appointed by the council and assembly, except the several clerks of the executive courts, who shall be appointed by the justices of the respective courts. That all bills, resolves, or votes for raising, levying, and collecting money originate in the House of Representatives. That at any session of the council and assembly, neither branch shall adjourn for any longer time than from Saturday till the next Monday, without consent of the other. And it is further resolved that if the present unhappy dispute with Great Britain should continue longer than this present year, and the Continental Congress give no instruction or direction to the contrary, the council be chosen by the people of each respective county in such manner as the council and House of Representatives shall order. That general and field officers of the militia on any vacancy be appointed by the 2 houses, and all inferior officers be chosen by the respective companies. That all officers of the army be appointed by the 2 houses, except they should direct otherwise in case of any emergency. That all civil officers for the colony and for each county be appointed, and the time of their continuance in office be determined by the 2 houses, except clerks of courts and county treasurers and recorders of deeds. that a treasurer and a recorder of deeds for each county be annually chosen by the people of each county respectively. The votes for such officers to be returned to the respective courts of general sessions of the peace in the county there to be, ascertained as the council and assembly shall hereafter direct. That precepts in the name of the council and assembly, signed by the president of the council and speaker of the House of Representatives, shall continue annually at or before the first day of November for the choice of a council and House of Representatives to be returned by the third Wednesday in December, then next ensuing, in such manner as the council and assembly shall hereafter prescribe. Thank you all most generously.
Okay, well, that concludes the formal event. Thank you all for coming, and please stay as long as you would like. Enjoy the displays, both here and along the wall, and let's look forward to the next 250 years.
I could not. Oh, my pleasure.
Very nice to meet you. Well done. You know, I was able to follow along in the house. Yes. I saw where you were reading, and I was like, you didn't have to read the script, though, did you?
No.
All the cursive writing you had it.
We gave it to